Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Well, tonight I'm continuing this 12 Power series, and tonight I'm talking about the power of understanding. But before we go there, the first question I want to ask you is, what is truth? What is truth? It's essential that we have some sense of that, because you won't know what to do with your power of understanding. What is truth? In this day and age, I know that we are full of a lot of different views about truth and different views, period. Fake news is being thrown around and seems to be like a real thing, but when in fact it has always been the same. We've either chosen to see a truth or chosen to see or to believe something or come from a different perspective, have faith or trust in an institution or in a source, whatever it is. But what itself is truth? It was famously asked during the trial of Jesus in the Gospel of John by none other than Pontius Pilate. And the fascinating thing about it is that there is no answer given. Jesus was particularly wordy in his trial up until that point. And when Pontius Pilate asked, "What is truth?" there was no response. What is truth? It says that in this understanding, discerning the truth becomes an individual journey. And it doesn't have a particular right or wrong answer. But it is an essentially significant and fundamentally important pursuit to have. W. Clement Stone says that truth will always be the truth, regardless of lack of understanding, disbelief, or ignorance. It doesn't matter what we bring to the party. Truth will already be there waiting. Truth will underlie everything. And the power to be able to discern the truth, to find what is true and essential for our lives, is what our souls are really here and attuned to do. That we bring the truth and that we express it and that we speak from it. The divine power of understanding, then, becomes the tool with which we discern that truth. Our power of understanding is the capacity to see the truth beneath conditions. It is the power to be able to use our intuition and to use our intuitive sense, something that is married from the heart, an understanding power that is married with the rational mind. But the rational mind does not discern the truth. It is only used to execute what it has been discerned by the heart. It is in service, should always be in service. This is the spiritual life lived. It starts when the heart grows in depth and wisdom through trial and challenge and darkness and pain. And as we move through our lives, and moment by moment, event by event, healing by healing, our heart becomes enlarged and full and beautiful, no matter how many times it's been broken. And with that brokenness, and above all, the healing that follows, becomes a container for an ocean of compassion. First for self, followed by compassion for the world. And in this is why we have come. In fact, that is even what Jesus said that sparked Pontius Pilate. I'm going to pull a Michael Gott here. I'm going to make a big flourish. Mine's right here, actually. Sorry, Michael. John 18:37. So Pilate asked Jesus, "You're a king then?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." That blew Pontius Pilate's mind, because he didn't think that's what he asked him. It was a simple yes or no question. You're a king or you're not a king. And Jesus went somewhere else entirely. What is truth? One can imagine that a person who has the capacity to ask that question may spend the rest of their lives trying to find that answer, as we all should. What is truth? And every time we find it, we grow. And every time we find it, we radiate that truth in the world, and the world changes for the better. From John 16:13, Jesus said, "When he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth." That Spirit that resides within us, the power of understanding, the power of discernment. Right here, desire of the heart for understanding is what is planted here first. Another piece from the Bible that I find so powerful is from the book of Kings. When Solomon, who had taken over the throne of the kingdom of Israel from after his father David had died, was intimidated as a young man with the power that and the authority, but above all the responsibility that he had. And so he prayed one night as he was going to sleep for not riches, not for the most powerful army, not for all the things that a worldly king might need to have or think he ought to have. But instead he asked for an understanding heart, because he bore such love for the people that he would be serving. He wanted to do right by them and be a person who could judge properly all of the trials and tribulations and all of the things, matters that would come to him. He wasn't there to fight great battles. In fact, as it turns out, he sat in a reign of peace for the entire extent of his life. Peace and prosperity was the highest point in the kingdom of Israel's history. It would never be equaled. It would never come again. And the understanding heart was responded to by God and said, "You didn't ask for riches. You didn't ask for a big army. You didn't ask for wealth, all of that goes with it. I will give you that understanding heart and wisdom to discern, to understand that you ask for, and I will give you everything else as well." Because understanding and the wisdom to discern one thing from another brings all the gifts, all the other attributes into play. Because what is truth? It is indeed our journey, finding what it is that we're here for. And each of us comes up with our own answer. And what we think the truth is for us in this moment, in that moment, in the next, becomes our responsibility to live from it. We use our understanding to serve the world. This is the great call. As Jesus said, it is for this that I was born in the world. He was speaking for all of us. It was for this that I have come into the world. Rachel Naomi Reman has written a book, My Grandfather's Blessing. I love the stories in it. You hear them from me often. This particular event, there's two little stories combined, illustrate how it is that we use what is deep and true within us in order to heal. She talks about a Filipino mother who was at the bedside of her 2-year-old son who had meningitis, bacterial meningitis. He was very close to death. And every night and all day long, she sat at his bedside. The nurses would come to do the things they would do. The doctors would come and check the vital signs and the lab results and look and see how he was coming along, make adjustments to his therapy. And there she would be with her hands slipped under the covers, holding on to his heel. And she sat like that all day long. And at night, she pulled her chair closer and leaned over and spread herself across the bottom of the bed that he was too small to use. And she laid her head down, holding on to his heel, night and day. After a couple of weeks, as he began to get better and better and turn the corner, the IVs came out and the monitors came off of him. And Rachel asked her, "What was it that you were doing all that time? Did you think holding on to his heel was doing something?" And she kind of smiled and was bashful and said, she said, I felt that if I held on to his heel and dreamed his life for him, he would come back here to live it. And so I dreamed of him growing his first tooth, his second tooth, losing teeth at 6 years old. I dreamed of him in first grade, learning how to write and spell his name and read, of graduating from high school, of getting work and getting married and having children of his own, having grandchildren of his own. And she smiled and said, I may have had a small part in his healing. The discernment of the heart, the soul, holding on to a truth, a desire of the heart to hold on to something real and to extend it to another in whatever way we can do it. There's a surgeon by the name of Hal whose wife had leukemia, and he himself came from the Japanese tradition, and in his tradition, using origami to make paper white cranes, I'm sure you've seen them, was a tradition used to help in the healing process. And the prayer, it would be like prayer was infused into them, but they became prayer intentions. And they have a box, and they would create a crane, this intricate, beautifully fragile thing, and put it into the box until 1,000 of them were created. And he did this for his wife every morning before he would go to the hospital to begin his surgical operations for the day. And then one day he realized he cared as much about his patients as well. And so he created one for each of the patients he would see that day. And it became his tradition to bring the folded, beautiful white crane to the pre-op interview with his patient that he was going to be operating on, and introduce himself and tell her that he had created this for them, and explain the tradition that this is a prayer for your healing and I've done it in advance. Rachel had been working. She didn't know about this tradition, and she didn't know about this surgeon, but she learned about it through a client of hers who had been putting off a very important surgery for some time. It was very important for her to have it, but she was terrified that her body wouldn't heal from it, that it was too big of an operation. It would be too great, and she may not survive it. And so to get over her fear of it, she was working with Rachel to process her fear and to try to talk her way through it until she finally was able not to lose her fear exactly, but willing at least to schedule the surgery. It's when she met Hal, who handed her his white crane. And she was so stunned, she brought it to her next appointment with Rachel and showed it to her and said, "Isn't this incredible? Can you believe this?" And they both examined it and said, how could this be? It's so beautiful. And she said, "The man who made this is my surgeon. He's going to operate on me with the hands that made this beautiful thing. And he made it for me. How could I possibly not heal?" It is for this that we were born. It is for this that we have come into the world, using the enormity and the generosity of our hearts to generously unfold and love, and to love first. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, and I'll just remind you, if you're familiar with her name but forgot what she did, she's the one who elucidated the 5 stages of grief, has worked with people in great trauma, tragedy, and healing all of her career. She says, "The most beautiful people are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern." What is truth to you? We know now how it is that we find it. Learn what the truth is for each of us. Once you do have hold of your truth, another question will need to be answered. How then shall you live? I know you'll figure that one out too. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.